Deep in the shadows, I know it's hard to put one foot in front of the other.
Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is CeeChronicles and I post fragrance related content on this platform. Now if you're new and you like that style of content and you're not yet subscribed, please do consider subscribing and joining this family. Appreciate it if you did consider becoming part of this family. And to those who are already subscribed, thank you so much for the continued support. Also note that I do have a second channel, CeeChronicles Unscripted, a channel I dedicated to posting vlogs as well as Western fragrance reviews on it. Now if you want to alternate between the two channels, which is if you want to support both channels, you can find the link of Unscripted in the description of this one. Now welcome to today's video. I have a few fragrances in front of me here that have the praline note as like a key wrap up to the juices that they contain. Right now, why I chose these particular fragrances is, after all the other ingredients, it is the praline kick that gives a warm, vanilla-y, milky, caramelly wrap up or caramelly accent to these fragrances, right? But before I show you the fragrances, let me just drop one honorable mention which I had prior in my collection is Shaka Oud. That one broke. But if you love the praline note, you're going to appreciate that fragrance because it is an oud and rose combo there with somewhat of a milky roundup from the praline. Now, moving to number one in terms of the ones that I have physically here, my number one is going to be Kamra Kawa. This fragrance, guys, is going to present a lot of notes at the same time. You're going to have that pop of the coffee, right? If you love coffee, but for some, if not most, that coffee is short-lived. It's then going to carry a fizzy ginger there, a sweet and sour tone from the cardamom. It's going to have a vanilla kick there, and then it's going to have those spices, especially the cinnamon, right? But there is a praline wrap-up to this fragrance, which makes this one somewhat more favored by those who find, the original Kamra a bit heady, doing too much there. Yes, this one says Kawa because it does have the inclusion of the coffee, but the coffee is not the one that does the most. So it's a sweet and sour mix, but with that beautifully done vanilla as well as a sweet tone of the praline. So yeah, this is our number one, guys, Kamra Kawa. Now, do also note that the note of praline, guys, is usually sometimes used in tandem with caramel, and it can also give off like a caramel kick. But in this particular lot that I have here, I chose to make sure that the ones I have here are doing the most in terms of the praline note. So if you have fragrances like Casablanca and you're wondering why I'm not going to feature Casablanca in this one, is I am mostly zooming on that praline note. So let's just make that one clear, guys. Number two and number three are going to be from Swiss Arabian. This is Shaka men, and then this is a Shaka for women. So let us start with the Shaka for men, right? These fragrances, up to today, I don't see a lot of people talk about them. I don't know why. Maybe it's because they somewhat stray a lot from the traditional shakaf, heavyweight tone in those fragrances. By this I mean if you have used the shakaf oud, if you have used the shakaf oud azraq, if you have used the amar, the aswad, I think they have an aswad as well. All of those are kind of heavyweight. Now these two are lighties, leaning mostly, towards that summer tone. This one is going to give you sweet, faint woods. It's going to give you spices, and it's going to give you somewhat of a fresh and clean note. But if you look at the note pyramid for this, guys, it has a note pyramid that suggests a very heavyweight note. If you just go by the notes there, the fact that this one has got rosewood, it's got ebony tree, there is the cypress oil, there is the black amber and all. Those notes are very heavyweight, but it is an example, guys, of how a fragrance can use heavyweight notes in very small doses, to an extent that it doesn't become about the heavyweight notes. In fact, what it becomes about is a warm, summery, clean, fresh, almost even aquatic to an extent fragrance that's sweet with that vanilla kick and that praline adding like a milky backdrop to it. So if you haven't put your nose, guys, on Shaka for Men, please do. It's one fragrance that's going to give you that caramel wrap up, a gourmand feel. Very nice fragrance, very nice twist. Something that is quite opposite of how it looks. It's more to do with like a milky wrap up, you know, like a milky accent to this fragrance. So number 2 is Shaka for Men. And as I said that I'm going to present them one after the other, let me then just get the Shaka for Women out of the way, okay, which is this one. Now, there is no correlation to these two fragrances except for the fact that the men and the women one are summer toned fragrances, okay? Summer toned in the sense that they just scream light, but not light in the sense that you cannot feel them. They scream, or perhaps let me use the word gentle instead of light, because the two do not have anything in common with a Middle Eastern tone, which you get in most of the other shakas. Now, this one for women, guys, has got a fresh citrusy kick to it. It also has a sparkling apple there that's going to brighten everything and make it crisp at the same time. It is the same crispness that makes this one summer toned, that makes this one very easy for me to wear in the heat. You can see the dent that I've put on this fragrance, that I do really love this fragrance. It also has a distinct fruitiness, but with that fruitiness, guys, you're going to get a warm sweet vanilla kick there, and that praline note, of course. And the praline note in this particular fragrance also adds like a milky, you know, milky, even creamy kick there. It's just going to be in the backdrop. I wouldn't come here and say it's lactonic. It's not exactly lactonic, but it just has like a milky wrap up there, like a roundup of a creamy thing happening in the background. So yeah, if you love the note of praline, or if you're wondering how the note of praline kind of interprets in a fragrance, then this is going to be one good example, because in as much as it has the bergamot, the citrus is there, in as much as it has that apple and the other fun notes, it is the roundup of this juice that is very praline forward. Shaka for Women, guys, is the third one on this lineup. And then we have Sakina. I don't know why this fragrance, guys, is a love and hate for a lot of people. To me, this was an instant love. Sakina is from the house of Latafa, right? The one thing that I can agree with those who maybe do not like this fragrance is the fact that, yes, it is very passion fruit forward. This, you've got to love fruits, especially that granadilla, that passion fruit. It's just got that wrap up that, smelling it like this, it kind of feels like I've opened like a fruit juice or a tropical fruit juice, a fizzy one at that. But it is a fragrance, guys, that has that praline note wrap up. The praline in this works together with the caramel as well as the toffee. That is the dry down of this fragrance. But yes, indeed, you've got to love, you know, fruits, because it's going to present a lot of fruits there, a lot of different fruits, especially the raspberry. If you are one that's able to isolate notes, you are going to feel the raspberry kick in this fragrance, and of course that distinct passion fruit, adding like a very nice summery take to this fragrance. But the dry down on this fragrance, guys, then presents a toffee that's going to make it sticky there, together with that praline note and the vanilla. So it is a very sweet fragrance to cut to the chase. So Sakina is here, guys, as number 4 for anyone who wants to add a praline forward fragrance to their collection. Number 5, guys, is going to be from the house of Latafa, and this one is Aziza. Now, Aziza, if you've been watching my reviews, or if you watched a particular review of Aziza, you will know that this one draws its inspiration from Carolina Herrera's Good Girl. But it is an example of how a certain fragrance can be inspired by another, but then switches, ingredients around, not enough to change the DNA completely, but to give it a direction that to some may actually even be better than what it's going for. I get a tamed version, guys, of that Good Girl DNA. Now, if you know Good Girl, you know that that is an upbeat fragrance. That's a fragrance that is a commitment. If you wear it, you better make sure that you are committed to smelling like that the whole day. And it's a fragrance that everybody around you is going to feel. They're going to compliment you, whether it's a good compliment or it's a bad compliment, but it's a fragrance that has presence. Now, Aziza borrows all that from Carolina Herrera except the heightened tonka, right? It's going to have the coffee note in there, but it's going to have a heightened almond, a heightened cacao, as well as a heightened praline note that gives it somewhat of a creamy wrap up, a creamy backdrop, rounded up in like a gourmandish way, that is quite pleasant there, not pushing it too much. This is certainly a fragrance that you can wear even in the blazing heat. So it's an example of how, some fragrances can be toned down by use of switching notes around. Whether they did this deliberately or they just happened to come up with a concoction that is not as beastly as the original, I don't know. But what I know for certain is if you like a praline note there that's going to give a gourmand weight to a fragrance, then you ought to try this. Cacao, praline, as well as almond. That is the wrap up of this. More to do with that than it is of the tonka. And it's called Aiza from the house of Latafa. And then, of course, guys, second from the last is going to be La Nuit Pandora. And now, while I mentioned this La Nuit Pandora, let me also say, if you have other fragrances in your collection that draw inspiration from La Nuit Trousseau, there is a likelihood that those fragrances are going to have the praline note, right? Now, this particular one is from the house of Paris Corner, and Pandora is their subsidiary. I've had this fragrance for a long time. I haven't actually reached out for it, but I decided to isolate it and bring it here as a recommendation for some of the people, that are looking for a fragrance that's got that sweet. Now that it's really, really mature, sweet, even sticky to an extent, caramelly, praline forward fragrance. This makes it more about that caramel praline and warmness than it does about the incensey rose that you get in the original. So if you love the original and again you feel the original is doing a little bit too much, you ought to try La Nuit Pandora. It is a fragrance, guys, that is at par with La Nuit Trousseau, but it's kind of tamed. There are other fragrances that I can recommend here for you, like Le Rive, Taste of Kiss. That one is also inspired by La Nuit Trousseau, and some other ones, of course, you can drop in the comment section. But I had to put this one, guys, as a recommendation for anybody who likes fragrances with that heightened praline note, who likes fragrances or a twist, to that original DNA that's not making it too much about that incensey, smoky rose, but more to do with the sweetness and the fruitiness. So this is the sixth one on the lineup, guys. It's La Nuit Pandora from the house of Paris Corner. Now, last but not least, guys, is going to be this one. This is just a tongue twister. There's too much going on here in terms of wording. And it is one fragrance that I sometimes forget to bring it here because it just says a lot. It's a Paris Corner, Emir, Fire Your Desire, okay? But anyway, it's here, guys, because of the inclusion of the praline note, as I said. This one is inspired by Angel's Share, but there is a twist to this. If you've used Angel's Share, the original, you will know that that fragrance is heightened, especially in the use of spices and the use of a very thick, oily kind of tone weight to it, very rich and all that. This has the same DNA, but to my nose, it kind of has a little bit of a sparkle there that kind of differentiates it a little bit instead of it being 100% at par, being a more easier on the nose type of fragrance than the original thing, right? Fire Your Desire, guys, is going to have a heightened apple there that's adding a sparkle to that cinnamon note, to the spices that they've used there. It does have that gingerbread tone, that, hot cross bunny tone, but doesn't really make it too thick, right? So it is also the dry down of this fragrance, guys, that then weighs in there as like a sort of like a dessert, a gourmandish dessert, built around, say you ordered a dessert, something that has dates and a savory dessert, if you will. It's very difficult to describe, but yeah, it does have that praline note there that kind of soothes everything, how the spices are spicing in here, makes it less heavy, a little bit more on the sweet side, makes it less sour, and a little bit more easy on the nose, if you will. So I thought to add it here as a recommendation, but for those who do not know what it is inspired by, of course, it is a fragrance drawing its inspiration from Angel's Share. Now, to give you an example of why this particular one is different, I do have other fragrances that our cloning angels share that I could have brought here and spoken about the praline note in them, but I didn't, because I feel the praline note shines more in this. Like, for instance, I've got Cocktail Intense by Fragrance World, but that one is at 100% at par with what it's cloning, like 101, where you might find yourself, say for instance, if I had brought it here, you might find yourself wondering, where is this warm praline note or gourmand feel that she was talking about? So this is why I recommended this one instead of the other ones that I have in my collection. So that's it, guys. That's a wrap. That makes 7 fragrances that I had physically here that do have that praline note in the mix. If you love those type of fragrances, you can purchase any one of these fragrances. They're also going to be gourmand leaning, depending, of course, on how they have played around with the notes there. Some of them are not going to be distinctly very gourmand, but they are going to have that roundup, that warm, sweet roundup there that you're going to feel is coming straight from that praline. And some of you, of course, are going to mistake that same praline as a caramel. But I do hope this helped. CeeChronicles is my name. Thank you so much, guys, for joining me today. Let's meet in the comment section where we'll obviously discuss more about fragrances. Please remember to turn on post notifications on both my channels. That way you get to be notified anytime I upload a video. Meanwhile, like and share this one. And remember that smelling good is a form of good manners. Cheers.